Hello, Virgo. Withdrawal creates panic in people who fed on your availability. Watch what happens when you stop offering yourself freely, when you stop being accessible, when you stop responding with the speed and enthusiasm they've grown accustomed to. Watch how quickly the narrative shifts from them not noticing you to them desperately trying to recapture your focus. Except that's not what this is actually about, is it? Because you're reading this hoping it's true, hoping that pulling back your attention creates the reaction you've been waiting for, hoping that withdrawal triggers pursuit, hoping that finally, they'll see what they had now that you've taken it away. And maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. But let's examine what you're really doing when you withhold attention strategically. You're still making them the center, still organizing your behavior around their potential response, still giving them power over your choices by choosing based on what might make them react. That's not taking your power back. That's just a different flavor of the same surrender. Lungs feel tight, like air isn't reaching the bottom. Stop you from moving on. That's the premise, right? They're going to recognize what they lost. They're going to realize your value. They're going to do something, anything, to prevent you from continuing forward without them in whatever capacity they've decided they want to occupy. But let me ask you something uncomfortable. Why do you need them to stop you? Why isn't your own decision to move on enough? Why does their intervention, their sudden awakening to your worth, their desperate attempt to keep you, why does that matter more than your own clarity about needing to go? Because if you're genuinely moving on, if you're actually done, if you're truly ready to walk away, their reaction becomes irrelevant. They could grovel or ghost, and neither would change your trajectory. But you're not moving on, are you? You're staging movement, performing departure, creating distance specifically calculated to generate the response you're hoping for. And that performance, that strategic withdrawal, it's exhausting, and it's still attachment, just inverted, hands trembling slightly, and I'm letting them. Stopped giving them attention. Past tense. Already done. Already implemented. You've already pulled back, created space, stopped feeding the dynamic that wasn't nourishing you. Good. That's healthy. That's necessary. That's you recognizing that some connections drain more than they give, and choosing yourself over the comfort of familiar dysfunction. But if you're doing it strategically, if you're measuring their response, if you're counting days or monitoring their behavior or hoping your absence creates the awakening that your presence never could, then you haven't actually withdrawn your attention. You've just redirected it from active engagement to passive observation, from participation to surveillance. And surveillance is still attention, still focus, still energetic investment, just sideways. So the question becomes, did you stop giving them attention, or did you just change how you deliver it? Stomach churning like something's trying to surface. They're going to stop you, prevent you, interrupt your forward momentum, block your path to whatever life looks like without them in it. And you want that, don't you? Want the intervention, want the grand gesture, want them to suddenly realize what they're losing and fight for you the way you've been fighting for scraps of their inconsistent interest. Want them to want you the way you want them. Finally, equal, reciprocal, mutual. But here's the brutality you might not want to face. If they do stop you, if they do intervene, if they do suddenly show up with changed behavior and renewed interest, will it be because they actually see you clearly now, or because they've noticed they're losing control? Because attention withdrawal, strategic distance, pulling back, these tactics work. They do trigger reactions, but the reactions they trigger are often about ego, about control, about not wanting to lose rather than wanting to keep. And can you tell the difference? Can you distinguish between someone fighting for you and someone fighting against losing their grip on you? Most people can't. Most people are so starved for attention that they accept pursuit without examining motivation, accept renewed interest without questioning what sparked it. And that's how you end up back in the same dynamic with a different coat of paint. Throat raw, like I've been screaming into silence. Moving on in 2026. Specific time frame. Future marker, clean break point where old patterns end and new life begins. Except time doesn't work that way. Years don't create transformation. Calendars don't heal wounds. Arbitrary dates don't suddenly make you different, stronger, clearer, more capable of walking away. You do that through choices, through consistent action, through actually moving forward instead of staging departure while hoping for rescue. And tying your evolution to a calendar year, to 2026 as some magical threshold where everything changes, that's just another way of postponing, of saying, I'll really do it then while staying stuck now. Because if you're ready to move on, you move on. Today, this moment. Not in 2026, not after they've had one more chance to stop you, not after you've tested whether your absence creates the reaction you're hoping for. You just go. And going means they can't stop you because you're already gone, already shifted, already unavailable for the games and the patterns and the dynamics that weren't working. Chest feels compressed, like breathing requires effort. I don't have. Here's what nobody says about strategic withdrawal, about pulling back attention to create reaction, about hoping that absence makes the heart grow fonder or desperate or whatever cliche you're believing. It might work. They might panic. They might suddenly realize what they're losing and show up differently, might pursue, might grovel, might offer everything you've been wanting. And it still won't satisfy what you're actually seeking, because what you're actually seeking isn't their attention. It's your own self-worth reflected back to you through their behavior. It's external validation of internal value. You haven't validated yourself. And no amount of their pursuit, their changed behavior, their suddenly seeing you, none of that can give you the internal recognition you're outsourcing to their reaction. So even if they stop you from moving on, even if they intervene with exactly the energy you've been hoping for, you'll still be waiting, still needing more proof, still uncertain whether it's real or reactive or just another performance, because you haven't done the internal work. You've just manipulated external circumstances, hoping that changes how you feel about yourself, and it doesn't. It can't. External validation never fills internal voids. Jaw aching from tension I didn't realize I was holding. Stop giving them attention. Let's return to this. Because maybe you did. Maybe you genuinely withdrew. Maybe you recognized the dynamic was unhealthy and you chose yourself and you created distance and you're actually honestly truly moving forward. If that's real, if that's genuine, then their reaction doesn't matter. Their attempt to stop you doesn't matter. Whether they notice or panic or change or stay exactly the same, none of it impacts your trajectory because you're not making choices based on their response. You're making choices based on what's healthy for you, what serves your growth, what honors your worth. And from that place, from genuine withdrawal rather than strategic distance, you're free. They can't stop you because you're not looking back to see if they're chasing. You're not measuring their reaction. You're not hoping for intervention. You're just gone, already rebuilding, already creating, already living the life that doesn't include whatever wasn't working. But if you're reading this hoping it confirms they'll react, they'll pursue, they'll stop you from moving on, then you're not actually moving on. You're still engaged, still attached, still making them the center of your story. And that's okay. That's human. That's where most people get stuck. But at least be honest about it. At least admit you're not withdrawing attention, you're weaponizing it. You're not moving on, you're performing distance while staying hyper aware of their response. Because honesty, at least, gives you somewhere to work from. Shoulders burning like they've been carrying weight too long stop you from moving on. Prevention, intervention, disruption of forward momentum, and the assumption that this is what you want, what you need, what you're hoping for. But what if being stopped is the worst thing that could happen? What if their intervention isn't rescue but regression? What if them preventing your movement forward is exactly what keeps you stuck in patterns that don't serve you? Because moving on is hard, it's painful, it requires grief and letting go and accepting that some things, some people, some dynamics, they're done, over, finished. And having someone stop that process, interrupt that painful but necessary growth, offer you a reason to stay that's tempting, that's seductive. That's the easy path that leads right back to where you are now. So maybe the real question isn't whether they'll stop you. Maybe it's whether you'll let them. Whether you'll accept the intervention as rescue or recognize it as another way of staying small, staying stuck, staying in dynamics that require you to manage other people's emotions instead of honoring your own. Can you recognize the difference between being fought for and being manipulated back into familiar dysfunction? Most people can't. Most people are so desperate for any sign of being wanted that they confuse control for care, confuse possessiveness for love, confuse someone not wanting to lose them with someone actually valuing them. And that confusion, that inability to distinguish, that's what keeps you going back. Not their pursuit, your inability to see pursuit for what it actually is. Whole body feels different now, steadier somehow. So here's what I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to confirm they're panicking. Not going to promise they'll stop you from moving on. Not going to validate your hope that withdrawal creates the reaction you've been waiting for. Instead, I'll tell you this. If you've genuinely stopped giving them attention, keep going. Keep that boundary. Keep that distance. Not to manipulate their response, but to honor your own needs. And if they do react, if they do try to stop you, if they do suddenly show up differently, examine it carefully. Ask yourself whether it's genuine shift or strategic response, whether they're seeing you clearly or just uncomfortable with losing control. And regardless of their reaction or non-reaction, keep moving, keep building, keep creating life that doesn't require their participation or validation or intervention, because 2026 or any year doesn't matter. What matters is whether you're actually ready to go or whether you're staging departure while hoping for rescue. Whether you're genuinely withdrawing or strategically manipulating, whether you're moving forward or performing movement while staying emotionally anchored to their potential response, only you know which is true. And only you can choose differently if it's the latter. But choose consciously, deliberately, based on what serves you, not what might trigger the reaction you're hoping for. Because that's the only way forward that doesn't require anyone else's permission or intervention or awakening. That's the only movement that's actually yours. Truth isn't found in others' stories. It's discovered in your own silence. No predictions, just presence. Stay curious, stay awake,